everybody, and welcome to Hands on Health. I am Dr. Patrick Frain.
And I'm Dr. Susan Frain.
And we have a wonderful podcast for you today on falling asleep and staying asleep, which is something that doesn't sound very difficult to do, but it affects a lot of people. And
yes, it does. Do you want my stat?
Our Bond girl stats galore here has the stat on how many people do sleeping disorders affect.
70 million U.S. adults per year.
70 million per stats galore. So that's a lot of people. 70 million people that have common sleep disorders, which really affect them. So this isn't a podcast that we were going to put you to sleep listening to, but the goal with it is that we're going to help you with some awesome strategies to how do you fall asleep and how do you stay asleep in a society that is just constantly bombarding us with all sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So let's get right into it, everybody. And so let's talk about these common sleep disorders. You said there were a few of them that we wanted to cover.
There's a handful. You can put them in different categories, basically. There's the acute sleep deprivation. That's something that we've all encountered. That's something like we stayed out partying a little too late, although at this age, late for me is like 8 o'clock. So I'm thinking like, back in college days, or we were staying up late studying for an exam, right. And you've got that, it's 1 or 2 days where you've lost some sleep.
Yep.
You go into more chronic sleep deprivation, now we're talking about months on end, and now I'm thinking of the new parents, where the kid just won't sleep.
Yep, absolutely. The little newborn that's crying, and just is up.
And the parents are like zombies, just trying to move through their lives every day. It's something that we all hope as new parents is going to end, and it usually does.
It does at age 18.
Well, no, because then we're losing sleep because we don't know where they are.
That's true. Then they're off at
we're
college.
We're worried about them getting
home.
So it never ends. No, I'm kidding. It does end. I promise. We're going to help you end your sleep deprivation today.
Absolutely. Okay, so looking at that, when I hear sleep deprivation, I start thinking of I fall asleep and then I'm up, and that's insomnia. So, there's so much to cover on this. But, what are some of these causes of these sleep disorders and this insomnia? I mean, why are people so plagued by this?
Yeah, we're going to focus mainly on insomnia. There are other things like sleep apnea, a medical issue. There are things like narcolepsy. Those are things that we're not going to touch on today. We're going to touch on kind of the broad strokes. We're going to touch on insomnia, which is basically you're having trouble getting to sleep, you're having trouble staying asleep, or you're waking up really early and then you can't get back to sleep again, or you're just kind of up for the day because why not? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's get going, right? Causes, there can be a lot. There's a plethora of causes. So there can be medical conditions like Alzheimer's, for example, or things like depression. Depression, if you look at the literature, depression can actually cause insomnia, or insomnia can cause depression. Sometimes it's a chicken or the egg type thing. So it's things like that, but there are a lot of things that we can do, a lot of things that we're doing that mess up our sleep.
Sure.
If we have a poor schedule where we're constantly changing shifts at work, for example.
Which happens with a lot of people.
We see a lot of people where they're working third shift 1 week, the next week is second shift, and that is extremely hard on the body.
Right.
But there can be other things that we're doing, like we're eating poorly. That's another thing.
Or eating too late.
Eating too late is a very, very big thing. Spending time in bed awake. Maybe we're watching TV. Maybe we've got our phone and we're going through the different social media for hours on end.
And I always think, in that watching TV example, one of the things we hear in the practice a lot here is the different types of shows people like to watch. And I think, it's what you're watching, before you're going to bed.
Yes, that can make a very big difference.
I'm a big fan of, if you're going to watch something before you go to bed, make it a comedy, make it something light, make it something that you're not going to be dwelling on while you sleep, because I do believe that subconscious is going to be trying to figure out who the murderer is if you're, watching some, forensic crime show,
or a horror flick.
Or a horror flick. Let's watch some dice 'em up movie. And you say it doesn't affect me, but I think it does. I think that does weigh on your subconscious, and then you wind up staying awake from that. So
yeah, that's exactly right. That can be a form of stress. So
you're creating a stress.
You're creating a stress. Yes. you're the cause of your own stress. And well, we do that a lot anyway. We'll sit and dwell on things. We'll be trying to go to sleep and our minds are just racing. There are things that we can do for that as well. Let's see, not getting enough exercise is another really big thing. We can also have nutrient deficiencies of vitamin D, for example, magnesium, iron levels. There are all sorts of things that can also contribute to poor sleep.
Does dehydration have anything to do with that?
Well, okay, so dehydration. Dehydration's a bad thing in and of itself. However, at the same time, we should not be drinking within a couple of hours of bedtime because now you've got an issue. You're getting up every few hours to pee.
That's right.
And no kidding, you're not sleeping because your bladder's waking you up because you drank too much.
But I think you can see where this really affects you in a very delicate balance because in one side, if you're dehydrated, that could cause you not to sleep because your cells aren't regenerating properly. And if you overhydrate before you sleep, you're getting up every couple hours to use the bathroom.
Yeah, be careful.
So it's just this
Especially as you get
delicate
older.
balance. Balance.
Exactly.
Okay. What about people's medications and things like that? How often should they be checking their medications to see what issues those might cause?
Well, and that's something, as we start heading into how to get a better night's sleep, one of the biggest things I talk to patients about is going on drugs.com and taking all of your bottles of medication, and you can throw it into the search engine, and there's a patient area in there that you can click on, and you can look and see, does the medication you're on, could that affect your sleep? And if it does, you may want to have a conversation with your medical doctor. Anytime you change medications, you want to hop on there or at least read the insert that you get, which can be a little bit much.
Yeah, and the insert's reading stereo instructions. If you want to get to sleep, maybe read your drug insert, and it will put you to sleep.
Put that as number one.
That's right. But I do like this drugs.com idea because it is something that is not going to be reading 1-point font, on a piece of paper that unfolds to the size of a city map. But I do like that that is a great resource that you can go on and see, is my medication potentially causing me some insomnia issues or prohibiting me from falling asleep in the first place.
And that could be a really easy fix. You look up and you're like, oh my gosh, 3 of my medications can cause insomnia. You're on the phone to your pharmacist or to your medical doctor right away going, hey, I'm having some trouble here. Can we change things up?
Yep.
So that could be an easy fix.
Awesome.
Yeah. Want to head into some more?
I'd love to do more.
Oh, let's do more. So one of the best things we always talk about in our practice is finding the cause of a problem. So if you can find the cause of your sleep disorder or sleep deficiency, then that's going to be easiest to solve because you're like, okay, it's my medication, no problem, we can get that changed. That's easy. But we don't always know what the cause is. So that's when we have to start trying things, and it can often be a trial and error. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of things right now, my top 10 list.
Ooh, top 10.
Top 10, here we go. Ready?
I'm ready.
All
Let's
right,
go.
we already did drugs.com.
We did.
Yeah, so check. Next, create an optimal sleep environment.
Okay.
This can be a whole long drawn out thing here because one of the first things that people ask when they walk in the door is, what kind of mattress should I have?
We get that all the time. Yes, like we are mattress salespeople.
Oh my
I
gosh.
never understand that. When we were in school, we covered mattresses like for a minute and a half of our education, and suddenly we are like people that work down the street at the mattress store. I don't know.
It's a little bit tough, but I can understand. We're chiropractors. It's all about your good posture when you're sleeping.
Yep, and we're gonna have a whole podcast on that because people have actually requested it. They want to know, what am I supposed to sleep on?
Exactly, but we can't get into too much detail now. So I'm going to give you kind of like the bottom line, which is my favorite thing, and get to the point, man. So a medium to a medium firm mattress is generally going to be best for everyone. But it also depends on how you sleep. Do you sleep on your side? Do you sleep on your back? Do you sleep on your stomach? If you sleep on your stomach, stop it. Easier said than done.
Or at least bring your leg over and make it a half side, half stomach.
No, it twists your spine. Stop it.
If you can't break habits, you got to have a good night's sleep.
I know, it's really, really hard. So if you're a stomach sleeper, you want something that's more firm. If you are a side sleeper, you want something that's a little more medium because you're going to kind of dip into that a little bit. And if you're a back sleeper, a little kind of more like medium firm type thing. Your pillow is also very important. If you're a side sleeper, the distance between your bed and your neck when you're sleeping on your side is larger than the distance between your bed and your neck when you're sleeping on your back. So you want a thicker pillow if you're sleeping on your side, thinner pillow if you're sleeping on your back. Again, preferably not on the stomach, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a debate, and you know, it's within our profession, it's a debate, and I think even, you know, just in our household, it's a debate. You really have to wake up feeling refreshed. If someone says, if someone comes into me and they say, I sleep on my stomach every single night, and I wake up and I'm the most refreshed person in the world, and I get through my day and I feel phenomenal, I feel like $1,000,000, it's really hard to say you should be sleeping on your back. And then they sleep on their back and they say, Doc, I was up all night, and you know. So
it's the lesser of two evils
it is.
at that
It's
point.
very, very difficult to look at that.
Exactly. That is very tough.
But we know, okay, an optimal sleep environment, so we've talked bed, we've talked pillows.
You need to be careful with light and sound. So, you know, it is kind of hard. I think of our daughter in a dorm room, and it's not always easy. If you've got a night owl of a roommate or someone who's up studying late, they might need to have some lights on. So you might need to have a little mask over your eyes. Sound, trying to have all of the noise completely gone is sometimes challenging. So perhaps having a sound machine.
Yep, sound machines work really well.
Yeah, you usually don't want one that's like the jungle or something.
Right.
There's monkeys in the background.
Don't feel like you're at the zoo.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want that. But you do want to try to take care of sound. Or if your partner is a snorer, you know, having,
Like me.
Yes. Well, like this
Yep.
guy right here. Yeah.
Yep.
So sometimes you need that sound machine to kind of drown that out. But you want something that's more like white noise is going to be best.
And another one that I'm going to add in here is temperature, too. I think you really have to look at temperature, and, you know, a cooler environment is typically better, and this may be a discussion that you have to have with your bed partner to find out what's a temperature that you're going to agree on, but typically being cozy under a bunch of covers, you're going to sleep more soundly than if you're cooking and you're on top of the covers.
Absolutely.
So we have that. So we've got,
generally speaking, between like 68 and 72 degrees at the most.
Yeah, and I think 72 at the most,
Yeah,
you know, for
that's
sure.
pushing it, though.
Okay, so we've got the optimal sleep environment. What's next?
Keeping electronics out of the bedroom. Oh my goodness gracious. This is a conversation I have with patients a lot, where they are sleeping with their phone right next to their head. You have electromagnetic frequencies. We know that those EMFs do actually play with our brain. They play with our pineal glands. They can actually decrease our melatonin levels. There's still more research that needs to be done to find out how big of a problem this is, but we know it is a problem. You should not sleep with your phone next to your bed. You just shouldn't. It needs to at least be on the other side of the room. I understand people come in and say, but I use that as my alarm clock. Get a different alarm clock.
You can buy an alarm clock.
Just buy an alarm clock, plug it in, and stick it next to your bed.
Because remember, for decades and decades and decades, you know, you didn't have a phone. You didn't have a cell phone. You know, when I was in high school, that's when beepers were coming out. They didn't even have the phone. If you had a phone, you were an executive in a corporation, and it was $100 a minute to have a phone that was in a bag that had an antenna on it. You know, somehow now we can't live without our phones. But for years, your parents and your grandparents had an alarm clock, you know, next to the bed, and they
bugler.
Yeah, bugler, and they slept a lot better than you're sleeping now.
Heck yeah.
So for sure.
And there's also those watches. You know, people are, oh, you know, I got such and such many hours of sleep. There are people that actually end up with anxiety because they're so worried about, well, how did I sleep? Oh, I didn't sleep so good.
But see, this is the thing. Why do you need it? And that's what I'm at. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this on YouTube, why do you need that? Why do you need a corporation to tell you how many times you turned over, how many times you slept, how many times you breathed, how many times you did this and that? I don't understand how for, you know, thousands of years human beings slept and got a good night's sleep without a device on your wrist telling you
them.
exactly every statistic of when you woke up. And I think that creates anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you're not going to sleep.
That's exactly, yes, exactly. You're creating your own problem. So that is, let me see, did I forget anything? We talked about temperature. Encourage pets and children to sleep in their own bed.
That's right.
You know, I know it's nice. I did co-sleeping when my kids were really young, but they need their own beds. There's a foot in the face, you know.
And if you have a 90-pound dog, it's going to be an issue.
And you're like,
it's going to be an issue.
To the other side of the bed.
Yep.
The other thing you may want to consider is essential oils. There are multiple essential oils that are helpful at relaxing the body. Things like lavender, ylang ylang, bergamot, valerian, and chamomile. Those are the top 5 that can help create a sleep environment, a
And
relaxing
would you
sleep
put those in a
environment.
diffuser?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You'd put those in a diffuser. I mean, you can put them topical, but a diffuser is better for that.
Good, good. Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. Next,
What do we got?
exercise.
Exercise.
Get off your butt. Get
Whoa.
off your butt, man. Exercise, super duper important to helping to align your circadian rhythm, which we're going to talk about shortly. But that can help, but it's better to exercise earlier.
Okay.
Don't exercise too close to bedtime. You don't want to get that heart pumping and then you're like, okay, time for bed. And your heart's like, dude, what? Are you kidding me here? So that's exercise.
For sure.
Eating earlier, I think you had mentioned.
We talk a lot about this, and this is a
Yep.
big problem that people come in with, because in a previous podcast we talked about how families are so busy and how everyone's on the go so much, and you're getting home late. You know,
Yes.
you're walking the door at 7:30, and bedtime for the kids might be 8:30, and you might have to go to bed at 9 to get up at 5 to go be at work at 6 or leave for work at 6. It's very difficult. So we're
Yep.
eating as a society later and later. But I encourage you, it's not your fault. You're thinking in your mind, God, why can't I sleep? You're not really realizing how late you're eating.
Correct.
And your body, it's very, very difficult on your system. And you think, yeah, but everyone's doing it. I know, and that's why everyone's not sleeping, because people
That's
are...
why 70 million people are
That's
not
right.
sleeping.
And I bet you 70 million people are not eating at a classic 1960s black and white movie dinner time, with
5 o'clock,
with little dinner
meals on the
napkins.
table.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Exactly.
It's just not. So
Well, you think about it, you eat this meal, and then all of a sudden your digestive system kicks into high gear. Well, you're using that energy, your body has awakened now. So you really should be eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime.
So let's use that as the rule. 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, work backwards. What time do I need to go to bed? Subtract ideally 3 hours from that and see if you can make it work.
Exactly.
Do you think it's better, along those lines, do you think it's better to go to bed a little bit later to allow for that 2 to 3 hours? Or
Depends on how late you're talking, because now if we're starting to cut off your sleep, if you're not able to make that up, if we're talking a half an hour, that might not be a big deal.
Okay.
If we're talking an hour and a half, that could be a huge
hour and a half
deal.
is too much. So 30 minutes good, hour and a half
Maybe,
bad.
yeah. It depends on the person. And that's what this entire podcast is about. We need to remember that all of these things we're discussing are not necessarily going to work for everybody who's listening.
Right.
Every single person is different, and finding out what the cause of your particular sleep issues
Yep.
is most important.
Yeah. What are some relaxation techniques that people can do just to kind of slow themselves down at the end of the day, and they can just kind of get themselves to a point where they really feel like, I'm ready to go to bed?
That's a great question. There are several things that I know I've tried in the past and then do now. There are things like yoga. May the fourth be with you. There are things like yoga, meditation. There's actually a frequency. You can get this on your phone, which again, don't have your phone by your bed, but you can have it across the room and turn this on. But there's a frequency, a sound frequency. It's an app you can get that helps to relax the mind, to shut it down, which is very helpful. Progressive muscle relaxation is another thing. So laying in bed and literally just thinking to yourself, my feet are so heavy. You start at the bottom, you work your way up, and you think of that, and you tighten up all of the muscles in your feet, and then you relax them. You move up your legs, you move up to the thighs, you move up to your core, you move all the way on up. Usually by the time I get to my core, I'm asleep.
Right.
But that is a very helpful way to get to sleep, is progressive relaxation technique.
Which is awesome. And what about some natural sleep aids? Because I do have a question on one of those when
Ooh,
when
you're
we get to
jumping
it.
ahead, my
know.
friend. So we're gonna back you up a little bit. We're gonna talk about nutrient levels.
Okay.
Because that can be one of them. So nutrient levels, checking your magnesium levels. So one of the biggest things with insomnia is restless leg syndrome. And when we've had patients come in with that in the office, one of the first things we talk to them about is their magnesium levels, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we have calcium contracts muscles, magnesium relaxes muscles. So in the dairy state, which we tend to get a lot of calcium and not nearly enough magnesium to balance it out. So our muscles never relax at the end of the day. So that's a big one. Vitamin D levels is also huge. And it is involved in melatonin production.
Okay.
So that's the big one I know you're going for.
That's the one we have the question
That's
on.
exactly right, because vitamin D, if we have low levels, which in the state of Wisconsin, we have low levels like 9 months out of the year, then our melatonin is going to be lower. If our melatonin is lower, that's what helps us to kind of quiet down at night.
But we just had this happen, and that's why I wanted to talk about this melatonin, because I think it's so important in this particular podcast. We just had a conversation with a patient the other week, and they were saying, oh, I take melatonin to help me sleep. And we said, oh, that's wonderful. And then we found out that the individual is taking the melatonin every single night.
Day. Yes. Okay. So there is not nearly enough research on this yet. And when I go back and I read all of the research, it's quite conflicting. But what I am seeing at the moment is that your body produces its own melatonin. If you are taking melatonin to help you fall asleep and you're only taking it occasionally, you're totally good. But if you are taking it regularly, you are telling your body it no longer needs to produce the melatonin.
Exactly.
Now you've got issues.
Exactly. And that's what I really wanted to make sure that this was a take-home message for this, because it was very, very important to this particular patient. And they said, I didn't know. And now that this thought of I'm doing something good for my health, I'm taking this melatonin nightly to help me sleep, is actually counterproductive.
Exactly, because she was still having trouble sleeping, wasn't she?
Yes, yes, she was. And it was because I'm taking this every night, I think it's helping me, and I'm taking a sleep aid or I'm taking something that has some melatonin in it, but then your body is not producing its own melatonin, and it is actually counterproductive to trying to keep you asleep. So just incredible.
Exactly. So let's see here. Sunlight.
Sunlight,
very important. So sunlight actually helps to get our circadian rhythms in sync. Okay, so circadian rhythms, why don't we talk about that a little bit? Very briefly, it's the biological pattern of your body over a 24-hour period. What is supposed to happen is that our cortisol levels, which are produced by our adrenal glands, is supposed to be at a highest in the morning because cortisol wakes us up. It gets us going. So it's supposed to be at highest in the morning, and then it's supposed to taper down throughout the day, and then as it's tapering off, then melatonin is supposed to come in around 5 o'clock in the evening, and then that's supposed to ramp up because that's supposed to help you sleep.
and this is in a normal sleep schedule with someone that works during the day and sleeps during the night.
That's exactly right. Now, when we have the sunlight in there, then the sunlight that we get helps produce the vitamin D, which the vitamin D can give us energy, and then it helps produce the melatonin, which in the evening then helps us sleep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So when our circadian rhythm gets off through daylight savings time, jet lag, shift work, that can be a really, really big problem.
Yeah, I could see that. Lots of things people can do, but then there's always that oddball one that people go, how does that relate?
Yes.
And we got to mention it.
We do.
Chiropractic adjustments.
And how does that possibly relate to sleep?
Yep. I look at chiropractic adjustments as a reset button. I look at it as the reset button. And a long time ago, we learned the example of static in a radio station. And so I just want everybody to think about driving their car and tuning a radio station to your favorite station, and the music is very nice and you enjoy it. And then tune it, and you can listen to it all day long like that. Then tune that radio station one notch up or one notch down, and it's nothing but static. You can't drive a block without being so irritated that you want to click it back to what the radio station actually is.
Exactly.
So that static and that interference is in your body all day long. And so typically people who get adjusted really do sleep better, and they sleep longer, and they are, it's a more deep sleep for them, because you clear the interference in the nerve system, which is just like taking that radio station and tuning it into the channel that has the music and not the static.
Exactly.
And so it's a very simple concept. If you want to sleep with static, don't get adjusted. If you want to sleep with nice music, get adjusted, and it'll tune your body just like that station. And I know it's a leap for people, but it's a very important one.
Well, exactly. The upper neck, the nerves that come out of our upper neck go right back up into our brain. When they get irritated, one of the things that can happen is that they become hyperactive. And that's what I will usually see in the people that come in and they're like, I just can't shut my brain off at night. I just can't get it to quiet down so I can sleep. Then we find that bone out of alignment in their upper neck, we get that adjusted, and the nerves are able to then calm back down again, and they're able to shut that brain off when they go to sleep.
So, in this podcast, there was so much to cover, and we hope we didn't put you to sleep. But if it did, replay it,
Wake
and you can play this each night before you go to bed. But it was all about falling asleep and staying asleep. We talked about common sleep disorders, acute sleep deprivation, chronic deprivation, deficiencies, insomnia. We talked about causes, and we talked about solutions. And in the end, remember, if you're having a challenge or you're having an issue with this, please talk to us, call us, make an appointment, figure it out. We'll help you with whatever it is, if you're looking for a supplemental approach or something along those lines. And as always, if there is someone that you know that is suffering from sleep issues, there were a lot of gems that Dr. Susan brought up in the podcast here today with those essential oils and others. Share this with them. Please get this to them so that they can watch it and they can benefit from it, so that everybody can have a good night's sleep, because
Absolutely.
it really does restore the body's health and wellness.
And then you're not so cranky.
And you don't want to be cranky.
No.
Absolutely.
Cranky, no good.
No cranky. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. We wish you a restful night's sleep. Until next time, I am Dr. Patrick Frain.
And I'm Dr. Susan Frain.
Thank you for joining us on Hands on Health, and we look forward to seeing you next time.